Ajahn, thank you for this day of mindfulness and for your wonderful teaching. This question is from Colin. In many of your talks, you briefly mention a practice called body sweeping. Could you please tell us what body sweeping is and what its purpose is? This is from Colin.
Yeah, the way this comes through many traditions. I call it full body awareness. We call it body sweeping, but going back to the intro meditation that we did, you want to develop a way of staying present to the way things are. Yes. So if you make that the principle of meditation, awake to the way things are for a continuous stream of time. So that's not saying that you're peaceful or happy or even focused. It's just present to the way things are for a span of time. And the thing about thought is that it's a kind of kidnapping energy, and it keeps creating a sense of self in time, past, future, past, future. And so the body can't do that, obviously. The body is as it is, and it functions, it's a function in nature, and it has its heat, and it has its itching and musculature and so on. So it's a very obvious sense object to help you anchor yourself into the present moment. So if you start to observe any part of your body, like if I localize my attention on my bare shoulder here, and I just allowed my awareness just to be localized there, pretty soon I just start to feel some kind of warmth. I can feel the fan on my shoulder. It's just a natural phenomena, but also I'm in the present moment. I'm aware. Now, if I could sustain that for long periods of time, that would be very calming. And if I return to it constantly rather than to analysis and thought, that would be a roadway or a pathway to calmness. So full body awareness or sweeping is the idea to stay present. And then it's done in many ways. So sometimes it's done like the way I like to do it. I like to start with the senses, like the mouth and the nose and the ears and then the eyes and the brain. And I like to just I use this language. I say make conscious something. That's the language I find useful. So if I say to you, make conscious the sensations or feelings in your mouth, what happens? Well, then you localize your attention on your mouth, and then you wait, and all of a sudden you feel your tongue, feel your teeth, and it kind of comes alive, magic. Looking at something else, and maybe you don't notice, it's always there. So you make conscious the mouth, and then you allow your attention just to be with that natural sensation that calms the mind. And then because the mind tends to wander, then you can choose another object. So I like to go then to the nose, it's a very, very sensitive place, and just make conscious the feelings in the nose, and just let that become conscious. Now, all the time I'm doing that, moving from one part of the body to the other, it's calming the mind because I'm taking my stance as witness. So whether I can feel my nose or not doesn't really matter. It's the awareness. So some parts of the body will be very obvious, like maybe some pain or coldness or whatever. Some parts you will hardly notice, but that doesn't really matter because intensity or lack of intensity is not the object, it's the awareness. So then I'll go to my ears, and then the eyes are very, very interesting because the eyes are the organs of attachment. We quite often when we're looking at something, we're trying to see something. Usually we don't look in a kind of open, relaxed way. We're trying to see something. So if I'm birding and I see, what did I see? I saw a scarlet tanager 2 weeks ago. I'd never seen it before. my eyes are really on that thing. It's really exciting to see it. So I'm looking for something. I'm latching onto it. And so what happens in meditation, because of the habit of looking for something, that tension quite often lodges in the eyes, in around the eyebrows, around the forehead, in the eye socket. So one very good meditation in relationship to body awareness is around the eyes. So you make conscious the feelings in the eyes. So you feel the outer the kind of orbit that the eyeball is in, the eye socket, and then the eye itself. And you just close your eyes and just let those feelings be conscious. And then it's very alive. And you don't have to fix it. You don't have to do anything about it. If it feels tense, it feels tense. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But now you're taking that organ, which tends to be very attached and looking for something, and you're stepping behind it. You're kind of behind it and seeing the eye as an object in awareness. This is very helpful. So then you start to get a skill in body awareness. So when you're trying too hard, you'll notice that your eyes go in tension. So if you're watching the breath, at least this is, I don't know if it's true for you, this was true for me. If you're watching the breath and you're trying too hard, part of the trying too hard will be tension in the body, and part of that will be in the eyes. So as you meditate on the whole body, you begin to see, oh yeah, look, when I'm trying too hard, my eyes get tense, because you're more conscious of your body, more conscious of your eyes. It needn't be that way, but that's one kind of insight I've had. And then I'll feel my head, and I'll try to go inside my brain just to feel the brain. And there you get very refined around seeing how thought is tension. Begin to notice that thought creates tension in the brain, in the body, in the neck, in the eyes, different kind of places. And you become more aware of thought as actually a bodily sensation. And then what I do is then I take the whole head as I say to myself, make conscious all the feelings in the head. And then it's like a larger awareness, and eyes are closed, and then it's all very alive. It's moving, it's changing. And all the time I'm developing witnessing, awareness. Then I'll feel the shoulders, and I'll go down each of the arms, down the arms, and just make conscious my both shoulders, make conscious my forearms, my upper arms, my hands. And then each time I say that to myself, I mean, I don't say that to myself anymore. I used to, but each time I say, localize attention, I would say that way, then I wait. And in the waiting, that bodily feeling comes into consciousness, but also in the waiting, I'm developing silence or calmness or awareness. Then I'll go to the whole chest cavity. I'll feel my ribs, I feel the skin, my upper backbone, lungs, and just the movement, and just make conscious that. So make conscious the upper body. And each time the mind is being calmed by that, then I'll feel the abdominal area, all the organs in there, the pelvic area, the lower legs, the thighs, and the lower legs and the feet. So as I progress through each bodily part, each time I make it conscious, I'm also making conscious the silence of knowing. This is interesting. So there's the movement of the body, the vibration, the heat, the changing nature of the body. But each time I do that, I also notice the silence of awareness. So it's a calming mechanism. It's a calming mechanism. So doing that a lot is been very helpful for me. And then what, of course, happens that over time, there's a kind of a constant awareness of the body in a more subtle way, a kind of background awareness no matter what you're doing. So you might be talking with someone and I'm getting irritated at them. I'll notice it in my body. Or I'm cutting a piece of wood and I'm getting too tense with it and I feel it in my hands. I mean, that's pretty easy. But anyway, you start to get this kind of feedback from your own body about what's going on in your mind. And then rather than always going to thought and analysis and thinking, you start to refer more to the body about the way things are. So if I have some negative reaction to life, not only is the narrative there and the thought narrative around that, but also there's the bodily feeling, the tension which might come from fear, say. And then rather than go to thought, what I've trained myself to do is go to the body first. Then in the body can't proliferate. It can't make more than is. So the feeling of tension is the result of whatever habits are there. But then as it's known, then it just ceases. It might run its course for a period of time, short or long, but I'm not adding to it with thought. So then the tendency towards that negativity is disarmed, and the fuel of it is taken away, and it tends to die away as a habit in your mind in general. So body awareness is a kind of place of liberating old habits. And when old habits came up, the phrase that Mokpo Sameda used to use a lot in the old days was, "This is your escape hatch." So when something gets triggered and some negative response is triggered, then that's actually a good time to change or to release that tendency to always react in the same habitual way, and that's done through the body. So if I'm criticized, like I think I talked about this in the Singapore talk, if I'm criticized by someone and I always get defensive, right? Now that defensiveness isn't thought, but it's also in the body. So with criticism as conditioned, there's me being defensive, let's say. Now I start to notice that feeling in the body. I don't run with the thoughts. I just notice in the body, oh, I see, that's just a reaction. And I witness it, I take refuge in awareness. Then the tendency to be defensive when I'm criticized falls away. And then I'm much more free to accept the criticism or to reject it according to a much more clear state of mind. It's a little thing, but add all those things up, body awareness is tremendously helpful that way. So the sweeping technique, it's not like you're looking for any particular sensation. It's just whatever it is, and the mind is present to it. And actually, so the breath meditation is the same principle, but now on a more localized movement, cycle of movement called breathing. Same kind of thing. So it's very, very useful to develop, and all of us have it already. I mean, all of us know if you have some intense emotion, you know it in your body, don't you? If you're feeling angry or fearful, you know it already. And this is a refinement of that same natural wisdom that we have. And then it becomes the go-to place, rather than just the analytical thinking, judging mind or the self mind. So in terms of developing that, you could say when you begin your meditation, that's very good to just feel like your body's sitting here, the temperature of the body. And then I find like going to the face is really interesting. It's very alive. What's it feel like? And because you're not looking for any particular experience, you're looking at the experience it is, it's a very calming thing. If you're looking for calmness by looking at your body, then you don't understand it. Calmness comes about through awareness of the body, even though the body might not feel calm. It is as it is. Huh? So it's an excellent and much used in most meditative traditions. Okay.
Thank you, Ajahn. Second question is coming from Chris. Some of the strongest thoughts and emotions in my day-to-day life, such as feelings of fear, anxiety, and resentment, seem to rarely come up naturally when I'm meditating. Should I be working with these feelings by deliberately bringing them to my practice? Or should I simply be exploring them as they arise? This is from Chris.
Yeah, I prefer the latter. I've never been one to kind of pull things out. But if there is some underlying like resentment just lingering as not a very strong emotion, I might just say it to myself and get familiar with what the background is. But I found that as long as I'm doing some period of meditation, which is making me more consistently mindful, then that will prepare me for those situations of complexity where these things will arise. That's my theory of it. Other people have different ways of working with this, but I figure that to have a period of calm where I'm not agitated by these things, and I have a place where I'm building the strength of sustained mindfulness, sustained awareness, is very, very important. And uh, I would not like let's say if that was absolutely true, I could just go out to places where I'm always upset. But obviously, you just get upset all the time. So some sense of calming the mind, composing the mind when you're not getting impinged by these difficulties, creates a kind of platform from which you can see these difficulties arising in the mind when you get stimulated. If you don't have a platform, you tend to just be reacting all the time. So the platform of calmness is called samadhi, the kind of composure of mind, the collectedness of mind, right? That you read about, that you notice. And from that collectedness, you enter into the complexity. You don't want, you can't always live a life of just kind of collectedness and be afraid of the complexity. So you want enough collectedness so the complexity, although it triggers you and it's unpleasant, you've got enough presence now to see, oh, I know what that is. That's a mood, that's an emotion, that's a thought. And then you actually use complexity for liberation. So that's what I found in my own life, that developing calm, developing composure, developing metta bhavana, wholesome states of mind, is very valuable because it's the positive strengthening side of awareness. And then when the negative things come up, I have this grounding with which to deal with it. But that's the way I've worked. That's the way I've and when I did get very upset, sometimes it happens. But if upsetness comes, then usually it has an echo. Right? If one gets upset by something in the day, it'll have an echo in your evening meditation. You can deal with that. That'll be plenty to work with, right? Because that's the way it works. It's kind of echoes through your mind because you got attached to something. So there'll be plenty of work there. Okay. Another question?
Thank you, Ajahn. Could you please address the meaning of each of these 4 words in the context of Buddhist meditation practice, and address each word's relationship to the other words? And this is from Janice. So the words are mindfulness, awareness, the knowing, and consciousness. So could you please address the meaning of each and each one's relationship to the other?
To me, they're all the same. You'll find, well, some monks are really scholarly, and they'll chop them all up, and they'll say, but I've never felt exactness of language is that important. I felt if I just get the point of it, that's good enough. Because to me, it's not about language; it's about practice. So I'll use awareness, consciousness, the knowing. I'll change it around with some, and then I'll watch their face and see which one is working. And then the one that's working, okay, that's the one I'll use for that person. And I'm not an absolutist in terms of language. Like the question that Norman gave on the Singapore meeting on Friday was, I think I had said that awareness is the unconditioned, right? Which is a kind of absolute way. And then Vipassy, the chap I just threw the stick at, he asked me this morning, is awareness unconditioned? And that's the problem with language. We talk about unconditioned or the transcendent or God or Nibbana. These are things, right? And so but the knowing is not a thing. Awareness is not a thing. It's ineffable. It has no boundaries or whatever. So then language kind of gets you caught up in doubt. So then doubt comes up. Well, is it consciousness, or is it awareness, or is it mindfulness, or is it knowing? Huh? And the point of it is not to have absolute certainty in thought, because that will never happen, from my sense of it. Well, maybe it will, but not for me. That I realize that thought itself is limited, but the thought is more, it's like, it's directing my attention in a particular way. It's like the finger pointing to the moon, you know, where the disciple keeps looking at the finger, and the Zen monk, no, it's the moon, you idiot, not my finger. You're looking in the wrong place. So in the same way, words can be, you know, words are important, but what, to me, in meditation, the importance of it is that they point appropriately to right understanding for each individual. So all the language I use, I'm always, like, if I'm talking one-on-one, I'm always watching people's faces, and if I see they're not getting it, I just change, move around. If they never get it, I just crack a joke, whatever I can get away with. But so language, if you are a teacher and you are sharing, you all know that. Like, if you're with a child and the child's not getting one word, you use another word, don't you? Until you say, okay, the child gets the principle, and then you help the child along. So you'll find teachers will use these. Some teachers are very definite. No, mindfulness is this, and where's is that, and so on and so forth. But I'm not. I've not taken an overly intellectual. I've taken a more intuitive route, and I appreciate language. It just gets me there. So if it's one word and it gets me there to the awake mind, great. So that's the way I function. So I'm not copping out on the question. It's not that. It's more like consider. I think the consideration has to be the tendency to always try to find security in the known through language. So that when doubt comes up around words like this, there's a tendency then to try to find the absolute answer in words. But my own sense of it is I never get an absolute answer in words. But when I can know doubt is doubt, it's just an object in awareness, a sankhara, a perception. It is as it is. Then it's not. I have no doubt about it. It's just doubt. I just don't know, which is fine. Which is fine. Then sometimes I need to use the doubt, like, what are we doing tomorrow, or how many monks are coming next week, or whatever. Sure, doubt is natural. I'm not dismissing it. But in the kind of existential problem of freedom from attachment, doubt is very, very insidious. And if you have the capacity to know that you don't know and it not be a problem, you have a tremendous amount of freedom. So it's one of the in Buddhist language, it's one of the hindrances to meditation. And so the way the fetter is described is that you have absolutely no doubt about the Buddhist teaching. What is that? Is that some kind of doctrinal belief system? No. I would say what it is you have no doubt that doubt begins and ends. And if you have no doubt that doubt begins and ends, then you know doubt is doubt. But if doubt comes up and you always need an analytical answer, then, okay, you'll get an answer, you get a doubt, she loves me not, that kind of thing will go on ad infinitum. So this is very important because we are intellectuals and we have thought and so on. So then, back to the question is then, how do you use those words? This is how I use them. Do you have your own sense of what they are, rather than relying on a teacher to say, well, what do you mean by that? Are they all the same? Are they different? And that's a very good exercise to go back to your own philosophical structures and psychological structures and ask yourself, well, when I say that word, what do I really mean? And what am I implying by that? And that gives you a lot of confidence. Sometimes, like in modern, like I always joke to people when I ask them, are you religious? And they'll say, no, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. And then I ask them, what do you mean by that? Spiritual. And they say, well, I say, no, I don't. What do you mean by that? And it's just a kind of vague cultural word that we use. But we're not religious. None of that religion for me. So then, we have like cultural language and so on, but sometimes we don't, well, what do I really mean by that? And that's a very good exercise. Excellent exercise, because it takes you back to your fundamental sense of why you practice, why you do this work. and what conclusions you've come to. And then those areas of doubt, you can investigate and observe and understand yourself.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just want to notice or bring attention to the fact that it seems like a storm is coming. It was forewarned. So if we do get cut off, then you'll call in, right?
Yes.
In case we
Yeah.
do get cut off. Yeah, okay.
So
It's
far, so
starting
good
to
with the sound?
there have been a couple of dropouts, a couple of moments where the sound and image broke up. Just briefly, and I'm just flagging it in case it's a
Okay.
forewarning of more
Very
to
good.
come once the storm comes. But we'll just hang on and wait for you to call in should you get cut off. Thank you. Okay, I have a question here from Jeff. Dear Ajahn, what is a wise attitude towards goal setting?
Goal setting.
Yeah, does it have to be Tana and Dukkha? Or is there a way to pursue goals with wisdom? So that's from Jeff.
Definitely, I would say. Like, you think about it, starting a monastery in Perth, Ontario is very ambitious. You know, it's not an easy project. It's a very ambitious project, right? So there's a goal. There's a goal, like to build this meditation hall. Is the ambition or is the goal simply egotistical? Is it simply for my own power and my own whatever? And I don't think for any of us it is that. But it's probably for one, that you need to put food on the table, you need to feed your family, and you want to be comfortable to some extent. You want to have some fun in life. So those are good goals, aren't they? Right? But there are things you'll share with your family. So to have the skills to be in the workplace and be able to bring back a pay packet and feed your kids, that's a pretty neat thing to do. Huh? Or feed the monks. It's even more neat. Uh, or then to be able to educate your children, or to participate in the TBC and have a computer and so on. So the material world has its beautiful benefits. So maybe the question, when do goals become suffering would be the question. Not to have goals, I think, would be kind of not human. Like, just to create this day of mindfulness is a goal. You know, some people got together and contacted me, so that's a nice goal. Working towards some in the material world. Now, what's interesting is about liberation. It is also a goal, you could say. You know, it's a goal, but it's not realized through time. It's realized through letting go in the present moment. So then you get a conflict quite often. So let's say I want to. This isn't true, but let's say I want to build. We're trying to build a meditation hall. We've had delays because of COVID, and we thought we'd start this year, and we might start next year, and so on. Now, so my goal is delayed through circumstance, and I'm cool with that. But if I wasn't cool with that, I want I want this, then the goal becomes suffering. But then if I also use the goal as a way of giving myself to the project, and then I want suffering within that, I watched my impatience or my where I give up, I don't want to do this anymore, my enthusiasms, my depressions. I use the goal as a way, as a kind of vehicle for understanding success and failure, for understanding my own lack of good communication skills, all kinds of things. Then as I try to fulfill this project, I'm practicing Dharma. And practicing the Dharma, I'm letting go of ego, letting go of selfishness, letting go of insensitivity. And so whether the hall gets built or not actually doesn't matter, because I've developed myself as a human being. And my goal of liberation has been to some extent achieved. Not totally maybe, but I have let go of some kind of selfishness or whatever it might be, have developed more patience, more endurance, and so on and so forth. So then the two come together quite nicely. Now, where they really come together is when we can do humanitarian work. So TBC is a humanitarian work, isn't it? People came together, they took their own time and their own resources, and they created this opportunity for us to come together, and that's dana. That's generosity or giving or creativity in that sense. And that's beautiful if you can do that. But you'll notice that even within a very good project of humanitarian work, there'll be arguing, there'll be disagreement, there'll be anger, there'll be jealousy. All that will go on. Just because one works for Greenpeace, it doesn't mean you're peaceful. Far from it. You might be very angry. And so the work of being in a philanthropic situation or a humanitarian situation, a family situation where you're trying to create loving relationships will be fraught with discord and conflict and beauty and not beauty. And the work of liberating the heart then uses the constraints of family life or monastic life to observe the conflict and learn how to let go of it. So I ordain as a monk, and when I ordained, and when anyone ordains in the ordination chanting, there is this life is for the realization of Nibbana. So that's the goal. But then Ajahn Chah says, well, you didn't come here to become anything. You came here to understand the mind. It's not about becoming, it's about understanding. So then you have a conflict. Like I had a conflict. Well, I came here to get enlightened. What do you mean? But I didn't understand that enlightenment wasn't the future of becoming, but rather it was a letting go in the present moment, letting go of ego, letting go of greed, hatred, delusion. And that was learned through, that is continually learned through the monastic discipline. So the discipline contains me, and within that, I can practice right understanding. The same way in marriage or having kids or being a professional person or being unemployed. That's a kind of vehicle you're traveling in. And within that, you try to find perfection in letting go rather than in the external. So if I build a meditation hall, great. If I don't build it, great. I've done my work in the process. And this is when all situations become monastic. All projects become monastic in the sense that all of us have a bit of the monk or nun in them. Very few want to do this life, but all of us have that sense of aspiration in us. And it's enacted when our worldly concerns are also our spiritual development. And this makes everything very, very meaningful, very meaningful. So when the difficulty, of course, with goals at work is that society doesn't respect that. It respects sometimes competition and perhaps immorality and lying and things like that. Then you're in a bind. You know, you're in a situation which has goals which go against your ethical principles. That is difficult. That's very, very difficult. And so, right, livelihood is a big challenge. How can I have a livelihood where I'm not compromising my own heart and mind and values for the sake of some kind of corporate value, which is ruthless or insensitive? Of course, I don't have any answer to that. But right livelihood is both what you do, but how you do it. So even if one is in a corporation which isn't that squeaky clean, at least in the human relationships, one can try to be honorable, moral, sensitive, and so on. And yet, even in those situations, someone might betray you, someone might take the work that you've done. So it's difficult. It's difficult. But always the path of practice is that, well, whatever the difficulty is, I'm going to try to take refuge in awareness and not get caught by it. And so it's a kind of constant learning. Okay?
Thank you, Ajahn. Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much, Ajahn. We have a question here from Marjorie. As a parent, I suffer tremendously because of worries of my child. I know that all beings are heirs to their own karma, but it's hard to sometimes accept or find reassurance in this. Given the difficulties of modern day parenting, Is there anything specific in the teachings that relates to the role of parenting? That's from Marjorie.
There is the there are some suttas which I can refer Marjorie to, but it's very vague, really. It doesn't cover the internet, unfortunately. And you're very, very right. The influences now on parenting from all kinds of off the wall sources are quite frightening, very frightening. So what I would say in the development of the Brahma Viharas, I think, Marjorie, you know this, but I'll just go through it again. You already have a sense of goodwill towards your loved ones. That's not a problem. You have a sense of compassion towards your loved ones, karuna. That's not a problem. You have a sense of joy for their successes. That's not a problem. So the challenges of a case of upekkha, and the Buddha gives that as the example of a mother with a child, and when the mother only wishes for the welfare of the child. When the child is sick, the mother has no problem caring for it. When the child is successful, the mother has no problem in rejoicing in success. But when the child starts to feel its own limits, or has its own, makes its own mistakes, etc., the mother feels distraught, and there's lack of equanimity. So that's biological almost. So what to do? Well, I would say I would say you always, like, if you want to be at peace with the way things are, you have to look at non-peace. Yes. So rather than think that you can be equanimous with the suffering your children get caught up into because of wrong information or whatever, I think you have to look at the desire. They don't have that, but they do have that. You've done your best, you've done your influences and so on, but then there are other forces bigger than you. And now you have situations where I don't want my loved ones to go down that path or have those influences. And that wanting is frustrated. And so it creates this great sense of tension. So if you can go to the wanting in your own heart, I don't want my kids to suffer. I know they're going to go suffer if they go down that pathway. One has to make that conscious that, yeah, they're going to suffer because they're taking these decisions, and these are dumb decisions, let's say, as an example, or they're taking on this information, which is very toxic, and they're being influenced. Somehow one has to make conscious the very suffering and the not wanting of that to happen because it's happening. So it's almost like let's say personally, if I was it's easier personally. Well, let's say if someone I loved had cancer, and I was afraid they would die, and I just kept worrying about that, then I'd have to make conscious the fact that they will die, right? As I make it conscious, I'm not willing their death, but they will die. And that's easy compared to someone whose mind is not going to be influenced maybe in a really toxic way, and that their lives would become somehow distorted by toxic energies. And that's even more horrible, I think, than death. It's a horrible kind of thing to contemplate. But you have to make it conscious. What else can you do? You make it conscious. I don't want this to happen, but okay, what if it happens? This is what it feels like. It will happen. Which isn't the same as saying it will happen. It's more like I accept the fact that it might happen, but I'll do my utmost to not let it happen. And then you have the limits of your own power, your own energy, your own resources. Who's going to listen to you in this case? And there's no easy answer to that, but to go to the pain. And then again, what we try to do is we try to say the pain I'm feeling as a parent or as a grandparent is the pain that all parents and grandparents are feeling in this modern age. You try to somehow make it bigger than your own pain. And so all beings, all mothers or all grandmothers suffering in this way, they're all facing the same problem. Right? So that's me and my kids and my grandkids and my suffering. It's like, yeah, humanity is this way. The human condition is this way. It has a lot of suffering. And hopefully that takes you to to compassion rather than to worry and anger and resentment and things like that. But I can talk easy because I'm a monk. So I don't have the deep attachments that parents have to children. I had a deep love of my mom, but my mom's attachment to me was deeper than my attachment to her. I knew it, and it was just obvious, and that was biological. And yet I was, I was a good son, a loving son. So it's just part of the dukkha of being a parent. And the more I think, the more you can make it conscious that being a parent is like this, being a grandparent is like this, and don't go to the thoughts. Don't try to figure it out. Don't try to fix it even. And, like some of it you'll try to fix because you'll try to be good influence, but realizing the limits of that, it's like that. Parenting is like this, and it's a horrible. Then you're coming to the peace of the mind, which can be at peace even with this horrible feeling you have in your own heart. Again, easy for me to say. I'm an old monk and I don't have that intensity of relationship. But the secret, I think, to awareness is you make conscious the way things are. It's a crappy. It feels horrible kind of feeling. And then the mind doesn't want to be with that horrible feeling, so then it goes to thought, either to blame or to problem solving. And that going to thought is avoiding of the full conscious experience of the pain. Whereas if one can just stay with the pain, I think it burns through you and you do have some space around it. You do have some perspective on it. I hope that's of help.
Thank
but
you.
If it sounds a bit, it's all right for you, monk. My apologies.
No, it's very wise. Thank you so much for your advice. So we have a couple more questions. Is that okay, Lynn? 2 more? Yeah.
Sure, please. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I have a question here from Barbara. I take a daily walk through my neighborhood, which is a quiet area and conducive to contemplation. But I have trouble maintaining mindfulness in this setting. Do you have any suggestions on what I might do?
So what comes to mind is that to not make the mistake that mindfulness means that you know every leaf that passes you and you know every smell and you're so totally focused that you notice everything. That I think is the, if I have it right, I'm not sure. You test out this answer yourself, but sometimes we mistake mindfulness for control. So the idea is that I'm going to go on this walk and I'm going to be present and my mind's not going to wander and I'm going to know absolutely everything all the way, and it doesn't work that way. But rather, if that were the case, say, you make the journey one of noticing the moods of the mind. So you have the natural environment, but part of the natural mind is the moods of the mind. So if you're in a kind of pessimistic mood and you're walking along, it's very, very beautiful, but your mind is very pessimistic, then just try to notice that. Oh, pessimism like this, and it colors the trees, doesn't it? Pessimism colors the trees a different color than inspiration. Fall in love and the trees look one way, and lose a loved one, the trees look a different way. It's the way it works. So our moods condition things. So sometimes we think the mindfulness is like, well, everything will be bright and I'll taste that orange and it'll really taste like an orange and so on. But it's not like that. It's like this, whatever way it is. So then you start to see that, like, going for a walk is not just about kind of functional presence. It's also being present to the moods of the mind. Oh yeah, I'm really worried. Worries this way. And then you don't make it a problem. You see it coming up in thought, taking you away. Oh, worry, yeah, a lot of worry today. And you're kind of gentle with it. You're aware of it. You're allowing it to be, oh yeah, there's that old pattern of thinking, or oh, I'm really excited about going there tomorrow, and then the which is the fourth foundation of mindfulness, the moods of the mind, or third foundation of mindfulness. I get the numbers wrong. You notice that the moods of the mind, right, as objects. So it's not just about the dahlias or the mountain ash or all the different natural phenomena. It's also the phenomena thought and mood that's going on. And that we don't tend to be that good at noticing because we tend to get caught up in the thinking. So if you make that part of your project of going for a walk in this beautiful environment and then noticing the mood of the mind, then you'll tend to notice the mood of mind as an object. You bear witness to it. If you bear witness to it, it won't be so domineering or whatever, and it won't be such a big deal. But the whole walk might be one of disappointment. Maybe something happened in your life, you feel disappointed, and then you think you're going to go for a walk, and now I won't be disappointed, but you are. Well, yeah, that's the way it is. And then you walk. Oh yeah, this is a disappointment. You're okay with that. You're okay with that because your refuge is not the quality of the experience; it's the awareness of that quality. So being with the moods of the mind is very important. You find that a lot in walking meditation. If you're walking and you just feel some regret maybe comes up into your mind, or some old memory from somewhere, and you feel resentment, and oh yeah, that's resentment, that's memory, all the time. And it's the way it is now. All the time you're taking refuge. So the experience itself might not be pleasant. And sometimes you go for a walk and it's hugely, your mind is really with it, and you smell everything and notice everything. And then you mindfulness, no, that's just a neat experience. But mindfulness is the whole package of being a human being, which means the moods of the mind as well. So be careful not to be too critical and judgmental about what you think mindfulness is, and look at that tendency to have a preconceived notion of what mindfulness will produce for you as an experience. And then because you have that ideal, that preconceived notion, the experience isn't that, and then you get judgmental, maybe. I'm not sure, but that happens too. So set out on your walk and then notice the mood of the mind. Like I had one experience I've often talked about in retreats, but I had an experience when I was a young monk in London, 1978. And it was a very miserable situation, raining all the time, and there was a lot of arguments among the lay supporters, and it was horrible. And I got really depressed, and I'd go out in alms round in the mornings with my umbrella. It was raining every day in London, busy London. No one ever gave me any food or anything. I just felt every morning I just go out feeling depressed, but I didn't notice it. I just complained. All the time, but I didn't really make conscious the fact that actually I just feeling really depressed. And so then Ajahn Sumedho put us through some very vigorous practice of yoga, and we sat for 2 hours every morning. We started at 3 in the morning. We were just fiercely doing yoga and meditation until we got our minds bright again. And then when I went for that walk the first morning after some of those exercises, I saw my mind with the rain, with the umbrella, with London, with the fog, with the smog, with the people, with the sound of the cars. My mind, from all that sense input, wanted to fall into depression. I said, no, I'm not going there. I'm not going to go there. I said, may you be well, may you be well. I just started to spread metta to everyone. But I got caught in that mood for quite a long time. And then from that insight, I said, oh, that's the mood of the mind. But I don't have to go there with thought. I can go to somewhere else. I'll go to, may you be well, may you be well, may you be well. Right? And so it was an important lesson because I wasn't seeing the mood of the mind. So the more you can contemplate that, the mood of the mind, as a mood rather than as a narrative. If you just go to the narrative, it's endless, right? There are endless narratives that you can dissect, but it's not about the narrative. It's the sort of underlying tone of the mind. What's that really like? And then you get a sense of it, how that produces certain kinds of thoughts or certain kind of bodily feelings. And then you don't tend to go there. All right?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ajahn. Here's a question from Yasna. What happens if there's peace/awareness during meditation and nothing much arises?
Enjoy.
Okay. Anything else, or is that good?
Okay, well, really just to participate in the beauty of the mind, which is clear. Just allow that to be there, because that's very refreshing. It's very inspiring, but it can bring up doubt. Because sometimes when we talk about all these negative things, they say, well, I should be working something out, or I should be working on something, and that's doubt. So that's just another mood of the mind, right? So if you know, everything's really going nicely, and then the mind says, oh yeah, but. And that's a more subtle mood than, say, resentment. Resentment is very powerful. You can see it very easily. But doubt can kind of come in, sneak in the back door of happiness. and then you start thinking, like when the mind is uplifted or radiant or beautiful, enjoy, like, oh, this is lovely. Allow gratitude to be there. Be grateful for it. And just let it be. Just let it be the way it is. Allow being to function. The rest will take care of itself. Okay.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you. You have referred to two of Jean Klein's words in the non-dual tradition: availability and waiting. And this is the last question. Could you expand on the word availability in terms of one's meditation practice? And that's from Jonas. Last question.
Well, that language is very useful to me, and I think many of you have heard me use it. And why it's useful for me is because of the background of my search. And my search is about the unchanging, the ineffable, the silence, the space, as opposed to happiness or unhappiness, or large or small. So my search is not for an object, but it's for something that knows objects, because that's what I feel is where freedom lies. So a language like availability is very interesting because when I'm preoccupied with thought or with emotion, and I have to be preoccupied sometimes, you know, I'm working or whatever, so I'm preoccupied with focusing on this morning I was working on the table saw and so on. So I am preoccupied, but not in a heedless way. I'm focused, and so on. But then the heedless preoccupation that takes place is around worry or thought or memory or future projection. And that heedless kind of preoccupation precludes the possibility of knowing the silence of the mind, because my attention now is preoccupied. So if I then use the word availability, I let go of that preoccupation, then there's a presence which is available to something new, something fresh, something different. Right? So that is a very good word for me for non-attachment, non-grasping. So sometimes non-attachment and non-grasping hasn't worked so well for me, because then I think I have to stop grasping, which is another kind of grasping. But this other language I found actually more useful, the difference between being preoccupied and being available. Okay, so that's one word. And then in that availability, nothing's happening, everything's happening. This is happening, right? And then quite often, because of this kind of searching mind that I have, then the desire comes up to find something, find some peaceful experience of it already. So then waiting is an interesting word, which it challenges like the words like becoming or getting rid of. It's not about any objective experience. It's just waiting for nothing. And I found that in other literatures as well, that kind of idea. So available and waiting then puts me in the place of knowing the way things are. And then within that, I'll see the kind of the habitual desires of becoming and getting rid of. These are very, very strong. They're very rooted in our very essence, right? This whole me being someone who wants to become something, and hence I want to get rid of something. So then in that sense of availability and waiting, then I can see like the whole becoming energy as an object, and I remain available rather than get caught up in the bhava tanha, the becoming, and then get preoccupied with something. So then I kind of get behind the narratives of becoming, the narratives of anger and desire. I get behind them to a more fundamental primal energy of becoming itself before it manifests into thought, before it manifests into personality and future possibilities and past histories. before that, before verbalization, it's just a kind of raw energy of wanting to get something, wanting to become something. And as I witness that, then I feel, yeah, that's it. I'm just trust in that, be aware of that. If that falls away, then the silence of knowing becomes more and more revealed. So revelation makes a lot of sense to me. What revelation as language might mean, not just in a Christian sense, but like truth is revealed when we are available, or silence is revealed when we're available. And so like that's why I just ask people, just listen to sound. And you listen to sound, and you're not preoccupied with the sound. You're available. And because you're available, you notice the silence. Now you're waiting, right? Now, what makes that difficult is, of course, the power of desire. Desire to saying, well, that's nothing. Can't be. It has to be more than that. And you start to look for something. You read something, read about enlightenment, or they try to get rid of something. That's probably more the case where some emotion comes up. I have to get rid of that now, and that becomes preoccupation. I'm preoccupied with this negative emotion, but just available. Oh, I feel this way. It feels this way. Then you know the negative emotion, but you're not preoccupied with it. You know the painful feeling in the body, but you're not preoccupied with it. You know it. Awareness. So that language really works for me very, very well. But it's language again, right? I found it very, very powerful the first time I read it. Yeah, that's a good. You know how it is. If you find a good word in your practice, you really hold on to it. Not as attachment, but as tool. It's like having a good chisel. Like a really good chisel. you really value it. Well, I like that chisel. So it's the same like having a good word. It's not just the word. It's what it has done for your capacity to understand life. And then because your life has been, like truth has been revealed by a word, right? Now that truth is always available if you can just use the word again. So what you find in your own, I think in your own language of developing a spiritual path is you come across certain words which are significant, and they remind you of the insights you already have, the wisdom that's always there. And it's very personal, very, very personal. That's why you'll find these different teachers who teach now and zoom around the planet, or your friends, they'll speak about these things in different ways. It's the same thing, pointing to the same kind of experience. So language is very powerful that way for your own practice. And some of them are just gems. So those two are gems for me. All right.